Chapter 2. Then Jehovah's angel went up from Gilgal to Bochim, and said, I proceeded to bring you up out of Egypt, and to bring you into the land about which I swore to your forefathers. Furthermore, I said, Never shall I break my covenant with you. And for your part, you must not conclude a covenant with the inhabitants of this land. Their altars you should pull down, but you have not listened to my voice. Why have you done this? So I, in turn, have said, I shall not drive them away from before you, and they must become snares to you, and their gods will serve as a lure to you. And it came about that as soon as Jehovah's angel had spoken these words to all the sons of Israel, the people began to raise their voices and weep. Hence they called the name of that place Bochim, and they proceeded to sacrifice there to Jehovah. When Joshua sent the people away, then the sons of Israel went their way, each to his inheritance, to take possession of the land. And the people continued to serve Jehovah all the days of Joshua, and all the days of the older men, who extended their days after Joshua, and who had seen all of Jehovah's great work that he did for Israel. Then Joshua, the son of Nun, the servant of Jehovah, died at the age of 110 years. So they buried him in the territory of his inheritance in Timnath-Heres, in the mountainous region of Ephraim, on the north of Mount Gaash. And all that generation too were gathered to their fathers, and another generation began to rise after them that did not know Jehovah, or the work that he had done for Israel. And the sons of Israel fell to doing what was bad in the eyes of Jehovah, and serving the Baals. Thus they abandoned Jehovah, the God of their fathers, who had brought them out of the land of Egypt, and went following other gods from among the gods of the peoples who were all around them, and they began bowing down to them, so that they offended Jehovah. Thus they abandoned Jehovah, and took up serving Baal and the Ashtoreth images. At this, Jehovah's anger blazed against Israel, so that he gave them into the hands of the pillagers, and they began to pillage them. And he proceeded to sell them into the hand of their enemies round about, and they were no longer able to stand before their enemies. Everywhere that they went out, the hand of Jehovah proved to be against them for calamity, just as Jehovah had spoken, and just as Jehovah had sworn to them, and they got to be in very sore straits. So Jehovah would raise up judges, and they would save them out of the hand of their pillagers. And even to their judges they did not listen, but they had immoral intercourse with other gods, and went bowing down to them. They quickly turned aside from the way in which their forefathers had walked by obeying the commandments of Jehovah. They did not do like that. And when Jehovah did raise up judges for them, Jehovah proved to be with the judge, and he saved them out of the hand of their enemies all the days of the judge. For Jehovah would feel regret over their groaning because of their oppressors and those who were shoving them around. And it occurred that when the judge died, they would turn around and act more ruinously than their fathers, by walking after other gods to serve them and bow down to them. They did not refrain from their practices and their stubborn behavior. Finally Jehovah's anger blazed against Israel, and he said, For the reason that this nation have overstepped my covenant that I commanded their forefathers, and have not listened to my voice, I too, for my part, shall not drive out again from before them a single one of the nations that Joshua left behind when he died, in order by them to test Israel, whether they will be keepers of Jehovah's way by walking in it just as their fathers kept it, or not. Accordingly Jehovah let these nations stay, by not driving them out quickly, and he did not give them into Joshua's hand.
Chapter 18. And it came about after many days that Jehovah's own word came to Elijah in the 3rd year, saying, Go, show yourself to Ahab, as I am determined to give rain upon the surface of the ground. Accordingly Elijah went to show himself to Ahab, while the famine was severe in Samaria. Meantime Ahab called Obadiah, who was over the household. Now Obadiah himself had proved to be one greatly fearing Jehovah. Hence it came about that when Jezebel cut off Jehovah's prophets, Obadiah proceeded to take 100 prophets and keep them hid by 50s in a cave, and he supplied them bread and water. And Ahab went on to say to Obadiah, "Go through the land to all the springs of water and to all the torrent valleys. Perhaps we may find green grass, that we may preserve the horses and mules alive, and may not have any more of the beasts cut off." So they divided between themselves the land through which to pass. Ahab himself went alone by one way, and Obadiah himself went alone by another way. As Obadiah continued on the way, why, there was Elijah to meet him. At once he recognized him, and fell upon his face and said, "Is this you, my lord Elijah?" At this he said to him, "It is I. Go, say to your lord, Here is Elijah." But he said, "What sin have I committed, that you should be putting your servant into the hand of Ahab to put me to death? As Jehovah your God is living, there is not a nation or kingdom where my Lord has not sent to look for you." After they had said, "He is not here," he made the kingdom and the nations swear that they could not find you. And now you are saying, "Go, say to your Lord, Here is Elijah." And it is bound to occur that when I myself go from you, then the Spirit of Jehovah itself will carry you away to where I shall not know, and I shall have come to tell Ahab, and he will not find you, and he will be bound to kill me, as your servant himself has feared Jehovah from his youth. Has not my Lord been told what I did when Jezebel killed the prophets of Jehovah, how I kept some of the prophets of Jehovah hid, 100 men by 50s in a cave, and kept supplying them bread and water? And now you are saying, "Go, say to your Lord, Here is Elijah," and he will be bound to kill me. However, Elijah said, "As Jehovah of armies, before whom I do stand, is living, today I shall show myself to him." Accordingly Obadiah went off to meet Ahab and told him, and so Ahab went to meet Elijah. And it came about that as soon as Ahab saw Elijah, Ahab immediately said to him, "Is this you, the bringer of ostracism upon Israel?" To this he said, "I have not brought ostracism upon Israel, but you and the house of your father have, because you men have left the commandments of Jehovah, and you went following the Baals. And now send, collect together all Israel to me at Mount Carmel, and also the 450 prophets of Baal, and the 400 prophets of the sacred pole, who are eating at the table of Jezebel." And Ahab proceeded to send among all the sons of Israel, and collect the prophets together at Mount Carmel. Then Elijah approached all the people and said, "How long will you be limping upon two different opinions? If Jehovah is the true God, go following him. But if Baal is, go following him." And the people did not say a word in answer to him. And Elijah went on to say to the people, "I myself have been left as a prophet of Jehovah, I alone, while the prophets of Baal are 450 men. Now let them give us 2 young bulls, and let them choose for themselves 1 young bull, and cut it in pieces, and put it upon the wood, but they should not put fire to it. And I myself shall dress the other young bull, and I must place it upon the wood, but I shall not put fire to it. And you must call upon the name of your God, and I, for my part, shall call upon the name of Jehovah, and it must occur that the true God that answers by fire is the true God." To this all the people answered and said, "The thing is good." Elijah now said to the prophets of Baal, "Choose for yourselves 1 young bull, and dress it first, because you are the majority, and call upon the name of your God, but you must not put fire to it." Accordingly they took the young bull that he gave them. Then they dressed it, and they kept calling upon the name of Baal from morning till noon, saying, "O Baal, answer us!" But there was no voice, and there was no one answering, and they kept limping around the altar that they had made. And it came about at noon that Elijah began to mock them and say, "Call at the top of your voice, for he is a god. For he must be concerned with the matter, and he has excrement, and has to go to the privy. Or maybe he is asleep and ought to wake up." And they began calling at the top of their voice, and cutting themselves according to their custom with daggers and with lances, until they caused blood to flow out upon them. And it came about that as soon as noon was past, and they continued behaving as prophets until the going up of the grain offering, there was no voice, and there was no one answering, and there was no paying of attention. At length Elijah said to all the people, "Approach me." So all the people approached him. Then he proceeded to mend the altar of Jehovah that was torn down. So Elijah took 12 stones, according to the number of the tribes of the sons of Jacob, to whom Jehovah's word had come, saying, "Israel is what your name will become." And he went on to build the stones into an altar in the name of Jehovah, and to make a trench of about the area sowed with 2 seah measures of seed all around the altar. After that, he put the pieces of wood in order, and cut the young bull in pieces and placed it upon the pieces of wood. He now said, "Fill 4 large jars with water, and pour it upon the burnt offering and upon the pieces of wood." Then he said, "Do it again." So they did it again. But he said, "Do it a 3rd time." So they did it a 3rd time. Thus the water went all around the altar, and the trench also he filled with water. And it came about at the time that the grain offering goes up, that Elijah the prophet began to approach and say, "O Jehovah, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, today let it be known that you are God in Israel, and I am your servant, and it is by your word that I have done all these things. Answer me, O Jehovah, answer me, that this people may know that you, Jehovah, are the true God, and you yourself have turned their heart back." At that the fire of Jehovah came falling, and went eating up the burnt offering and the pieces of wood, and the stones and the dust, and the water that was in the trench it licked up. When all the people saw it, they immediately fell upon their faces and said, "Jehovah is the true God. Jehovah is the true God." Then Elijah said to them, "Seize the prophets of Baal. Do not let a single one of them escape." At once they seized them, and Elijah then brought them down to the torrent valley of Kishon, and slaughtered them there. Elijah now said to Ahab, "Go up, eat and drink, for there is the sound of the turmoil of a downpour." And Ahab proceeded to go up to eat and drink. As for Elijah, he went up to the top of Carmel, and began crouching to the earth, and keeping his face put between his knees. Then he said to his attendant, "Go up, please. Look in the direction of the sea." So he went up and looked, and then said, "There is nothing at all." And he went on to say, "Go back," for 7 times. And it came about at the 7th time that he got to say, "Look, there is a small cloud like a man's palm ascending out of the sea." He now said, "Go up, say to Ahab, hitch up, and go down that the downpour may not detain you." And it came about in the meantime that the heavens themselves darkened up with clouds, and wind and a great downpour began to occur. And Ahab kept riding and made his way to Jezreel. And the very hand of Jehovah proved to be upon Elijah, so that he girded up his hips and went running ahead of Ahab all the way to Jezreel. Chapter 10. Now Ahab had 70 sons in Samaria. Therefore Jehu wrote letters and sent them to Samaria to the princes of Jezreel, the older men and the caretakers of Ahab, saying, "Now then, at the very time that this letter comes to you, there are with you the sons of your Lord, and there are with you the war chariots and the horses and a fortified city and the armor. And you must see which is the best and most upright of the sons of your Lord, and put him upon the throne of his father. Then fight for the house of your Lord." And they became very greatly afraid and began to say, "Look, 2 kings themselves did not stand before him, and how shall we ourselves stand? Consequently, the one who was over the house, and the one who was over the city, and the older men, and the caretakers, sent to Jehu, saying, We are your servants, and everything that you say to us we shall do. We shall not make anyone king. What is good in your own eyes, do. At that he wrote them a second letter, saying, If you belong to me, and it is my voice that you are obeying, take the heads of the men that are sons of your Lord, and come to me tomorrow at this time at Jezreel. Now the sons of the king, 70 men, were with the distinguished men of the city that were bringing them up. And it came about that as soon as the letter came to them, they went taking the sons of the king and slaughtering them, 70 men, after which they put their heads in baskets and sent them to him at Jezreel. Then the messenger came in and told him, saying, They have brought the heads of the sons of the king. So he said, Put them in 2 heaps at the entrance of the gate until morning. And it came about in the morning that he proceeded to go out. Then he stood still and said to all the people, You are righteous. Here I myself conspired against my Lord, and I got to kill him. But who struck down all these? Know then that nothing of Jehovah's word will fall unfulfilled to the earth, that Jehovah has spoken against the house of Ahab. And Jehovah himself has done what he spoke by means of his servant Elijah. Moreover, Jehu went on to strike down all who were left over of the house of Ahab in Jezreel, and all his distinguished men, and his acquaintances, and his priests, until he had let no survivor of his remain. And he proceeded to rise and come in, then get on his way to Samaria. The binding house of the shepherds was on the way. And Jehu himself encountered the brothers of Ahaziah the king of Judah. When he said to them, Who are you? Then they said, We are the brothers of Ahaziah, and we are on our way down to ask if all is well with the sons of the king and the sons of the lady. Immediately he said, Seize them alive, you men! So they seized them alive and slaughtered them at the cistern of the binding house, 42 men, and he did not let a single one of them remain. As he was going along from there, he got to encounter Jehonadab, the son of Rechab, coming to meet him. When he blessed him, he accordingly said to him, Is your heart upright with me, just as my own heart is with your heart? To this Jehonadab said, It is. If it is, do give me your hand. So he gave him his hand. At that he made him get up into the chariot with him. Then he said, Do go along with me, and look upon my toleration of no rivalry toward Jehovah. And they kept him riding with him in his war chariot. Finally he came to Samaria. Now he went striking down all who were left over of Ahab's in Samaria, until he had annihilated them, according to Jehovah's word that he had spoken to Elijah. Further, Jehu collected all the people together and said to them, Ahab, on the one hand, worship Baal a little. Jehu, on the other hand, will worship him a great deal. So now call all the prophets of Baal, all his worshippers and all his priests to me. Do not let a single one be missing, because I have a great sacrifice for Baal. Anyone that is missing will not keep living. As for Jehu, he acted slyly for the purpose of destroying the worshippers of Baal. And Jehu went on to say, Sanctify a solemn assembly for Baal. Accordingly they proclaimed it. After that Jehu sent through all Israel, so that all the worshippers of Baal came in, and not a single one was left over that did not come in. And they kept coming into the house of Baal, and the house of Baal came to be full from end to end. He now said to the one who was over the wardrobe, Bring out garments for all the worshippers of Baal. So he brought the attire out for them. Then Jehu entered with Jehonadab the son of Rechab into the house of Baal. He now said to the worshippers of Baal, Search carefully, and see that there may be here with you none of the worshippers of Jehovah, but only the worshippers of Baal." Finally they came in to render up sacrifices and burnt offerings, and Jehu himself stationed 80 men outside at his disposal, and went on to say, "As for the man that escapes from the men whom I am bringing into your hands, the one soul will go for the other soul." And it came about that as soon as he finished rendering up the burnt offering, Jehu immediately said to the runners and the adjutants, "Come in, strike them down, do not let a single one go out." And the runners and the adjutants began to strike them down with the edge of the sword, and to throw them out, and they kept going as far as the city of the house of Baal. Then they brought out the sacred pillars of the house of Baal, and burned each one. Further, they pulled down the sacred pillar of Baal, and pulled down the house of Baal, and they kept it set aside for privies down to this day. Thus Jehu annihilated Baal out of Israel. It was only the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, with which he caused Israel to sin, that Jehu did not turn aside from following them, that is, the golden calves, of which one was in Bethel and one in Dan. Consequently, Jehovah said to Jehu, "For the reason that you have acted well in doing what is right in my eyes, and according to all that was in my heart you have done to the house of Ahab, sons themselves to the 4th generation will sit for you upon the throne of Israel." And Jehu himself did not take care to walk in the law of Jehovah the God of Israel with all his heart. He did not turn aside from the sins of Jeroboam, with which he caused Israel to sin. In those days Jehovah started to cut off Israel piece by piece, and Hazael kept striking them in all the territory of Israel, from the Jordan toward the rising of the sun, all the land of Gilead, the Gadites, and the Reubenites, and the Manassites, from Aroer, which is by the torn valley of Arnon, even Gilead and Bashan. And the rest of the affairs of Jehu and all that he did, and all his mightiness, are they not written in the book of the affairs of the days of the kings of Israel? Finally Jehu lay down with his forefathers, and they buried him in Samaria, and Jehoahaz his son began to reign in place of him. And the days that Jehu had reigned over Israel were 28 years in Samaria.
Chapter 7. The word that occurred to Jeremiah from Jehovah, saying, "Stand in the gate of the house of Jehovah, and you must proclaim there this word, and you must say, Hear the word of Jehovah, all you of Judah, who are entering into these gates to bow down to Jehovah. This is what Jehovah of armies, the God of Israel, has said. Make your ways and your dealings good, and I will keep you people residing in this place. Do not put your trust in fallacious words, saying, The temple of Jehovah, the temple of Jehovah, the temple of Jehovah they are. For if you will positively make your ways and your dealings good, if you will positively carry out justice between a man and his companion, if no alien resident, no fatherless boy, and no widow you will oppress, and innocent blood you will not shed in this place, and after other gods you will not walk for calamity to yourselves, I, in turn, shall certainly keep you residing in this place, in the land that I gave to your forefathers, from time indefinite even to time indefinite. Here you are putting your trust in fallacious words. It will certainly be of no benefit at all. Can there be stealing, murdering, and committing adultery, and swearing falsely, and making sacrificial smoke to Baal, and walking after other gods whom you had not known? And must you come and stand before me in this house upon which my name has been called? And must you say, We shall certainly be delivered, in the face of doing all these detestable things? Has this house upon which my name has been called become a mere cave of robbers in your eyes? Here I myself also have seen it, is the utterance of Jehovah. However, go now to my place that was in Shiloh, where I caused my name to reside at first, and see what I did to it because of the badness of my people Israel. And now, for the reason that you kept doing all these works, is the utterance of Jehovah, and I kept speaking to you, getting up early and speaking, but you did not listen, and I kept calling you, but you did not answer. I will do also to the house upon which my name has been called, in which you are trusting, and to the place that I gave to you and to your forefathers, just as I did to Shiloh. And I will throw you out from before my face, just as I threw out all your brothers, the whole offspring of Ephraim. And as for you, do not pray in behalf of this people, neither raise in their behalf an entreating cry or a prayer, nor beseech me, for I shall not be listening to you. Are you not seeing what they are doing in the cities of Judah and in the streets of Jerusalem? The sons are picking up sticks of wood, and the fathers are lighting the fire, and the wives are kneading flour dough in order to make sacrificial cakes to the Queen of the heavens. And there is a pouring out of drink offerings to other gods for the purpose of offending me. Is it I whom they are offending? Is the utterance of Jehovah. Is it not they themselves for the purpose of shame to their faces? Therefore this is what the sovereign Lord Jehovah has said. Look, my anger and my rage are being poured forth upon this place, upon mankind, and upon domestic animal, and upon the tree of the field, and upon the fruitage of the ground, and it must burn, and it will not be extinguished. This is what Jehovah of armies, the God of Israel, has said. Add those whole burnt offerings of yours to your sacrifices, and eat flesh. For I did not speak with your forefathers, nor did I command them in the day of my bringing them out from the land of Egypt, concerning the matters of whole burnt offering and sacrifice. But this word I did express in command upon them, saying, Obey my voice, and I will become your God, and you yourselves will become my people, and you must walk in all the way that I shall command you, in order that it may go well with you. But they did not listen, neither did they incline their ear, but they went walking in the counsels, in the stubbornness of their bad heart, so that they became backward in direction, and not forward, from the day that your forefathers came forth out of the land of Egypt until this day. And I kept sending to you all my servants the prophets, daily getting up early and sending them. But they did not listen to me, and they did not incline their ear, but they kept hardening their neck. They acted worse than their forefathers. And you must speak to them all these words, but they will not listen to you, and you must call to them, but they will not answer you. And you must say to them, This is the nation whose people have not obeyed the voice of Jehovah its God, and have not taken discipline. Faithfulness has perished, and it has been cut off from their mouth. Shear off your uncut hair, and throw it away, and upon the bare hills raise a dirge. For Jehovah has rejected, and will desert the generation with which he is furious. For the sons of Judah have done what is bad in my eyes, is the utterance of Jehovah. They have set their disgusting things in the house upon which my name has been called, in order to defile it. And they have built the high places of Topheth, which is in the valley of the son of Hinnom, in order to burn their sons and their daughters in the fire, a thing that I had not commanded, and that had not come up into my heart. Therefore look, days are coming, is the utterance of Jehovah, when it will no more be said to be Topheth, and the valley of the son of Hinnom, but the valley of the killing. And they will have to bury in Topheth without there being enough place. And the dead bodies of this people must become food for the flying creatures of the heavens, and for the beasts of the earth, with nobody to make them tremble. And I will cause to cease from the cities of Judah, and from the streets of Jerusalem, the voice of exultation, and the voice of rejoicing, the voice of the bridegroom, and the voice of the bride. For the land will become nothing but a devastated place.
Chapter 11. I ask then, God did not reject his people, did he? Never may that happen, for I also am an Israelite, of the seed of Abraham, of the tribe of Benjamin. God did not reject his people whom he first recognized. Why, do you not know what the Scripture says in connection with Elijah, as he pleads with God against Israel? Jehovah, they have killed your prophets. They have dug up your altars, and I alone am left, and they are looking for my soul. Yet what does the divine pronouncement say to him? I have left 7,000 men over for myself, men who have not bent the knee to Baal. In this way, therefore, at the present season, also a remnant has turned up according to a choosing due to undeserved kindness. Now, if it is by undeserved kindness, it is no longer due to works. Otherwise, the undeserved kindness no longer proves to be undeserved kindness. What then? The very thing Israel is earnestly seeking, he did not obtain. But the ones chosen obtained it. The rest had their sensibilities blunted. Just as it is written, God has given them a spirit of deep sleep, eyes so as not to see, and ears so as not to hear, down to this very day. Also David says, let their table become for them a snare and a trap, and a stumbling block, and a retribution. Let their eyes become darkened, so as not to see, and always bow down their back. Therefore I ask, did they stumble so that they fell completely? Never may that happen. But by their false step there is salvation to people of the nations, to incite them to jealousy. Now if their false step means riches to the world, and their decrease means riches to people of the nations, how much more will the full number of them mean it? Now I speak to you who are people of the nations, for as much as I am in reality an apostle to the nations, I glorify my ministry, if I may by any means incite those who are my own flesh to jealousy, and save some from among them. For if the casting of them away means reconciliation for the world, what will the receiving of them mean, but life from the dead? Further, if the part taken as firstfruits is holy, the lump is also, and if the root is holy, the branches are also. However, if some of the branches were broken off, but you, although being a wild olive, were grafted in among them, and became a sharer of the olive's root of fatness, do not be exulting over the branches. If though you are exulting over them, it is not you that bear the root, but the root bears you. You will say then, branches were broken off that I might be grafted in. All right. For their lack of faith, they were broken off. But you are standing by faith. Quit having lofty ideas, but be in fear. For if God did not spare the natural branches, neither will he spare you. See therefore God's kindness and severity. Toward those who fell there is severity, but toward you there is God's kindness, provided you remain in his kindness. Otherwise, you also will be lopped off. They also, if they do not remain in their lack of faith, will be grafted in, for God is able to graft them in again. For if you were cut out of the olive tree that is wild by nature, and were grafted contrary to nature into the garden olive tree, how much rather will these who are natural be grafted into their own olive tree? For I do not want you, brothers, to be ignorant of this sacred secret, in order for you not to be discreet in your own eyes, that a dulling of sensibilities has happened in part to Israel, until the full number of people of the nations has come in, and in this manner all Israel will be saved. Just as it is written, The deliverer will come out of Zion and turn away ungodly practices from Jacob. And this is the covenant on my part with them when I take their sins away. True, with reference to the good news, they are enemies for your sakes. But with reference to God's choosing, they are beloved for the sake of their forefathers. For the gifts and the calling of God are not things he will regret. For just as you were once disobedient to God, but have now been shown mercy because of their disobedience, so also these now have been disobedient with mercy resulting to you, that they themselves also may now be shown mercy. For God has shut them all up together in disobedience, that he might show all of them mercy.